the
neighbors
day we
upset
got our
saying
first
like
call.
that's her.
Okay.
I got you. I thought you meant the neighbor.
Good evening. We'll call this meeting to order. This is the April 27th meeting of the Pullman School District Board of Directors. We'd like to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming to the meeting. The first item on our agenda is flag salute, so if everyone would please join us.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda that anyone would like to add or subtract to the agenda?
I don't know of any. Nope.
Okay.
I will move that we approve the agenda as presented this evening.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as presented. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously, so that's the agenda we will follow this evening. Our next item on the agenda is for visitors. This is a part of the agenda for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board are asked to go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. Visitors are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. The board will listen but probably not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic to a future meeting for a discussion item. Anyone would like to come forward and talk as a visitor? All right, I see no one moving, so we'll proceed to the next item on our agenda, which is reports, correspondence, and programs. Do we have a PHSASB report this evening? Okay.
Hello, my name is Lucy Ward, and I'm the junior class ASB president at PHS. We have actually a lot of stuff going on right now. Just last week, we attended We Day in Seattle. So it's a celebration for students who do youth throughout Washington State. So that was an exciting opportunity, and we were able to learn about some of the different resources that the We Day organization offers, and also what other students in our area are doing for their service projects. So that was really exciting. And I'm wearing the shirt from it today. So we're also having a lot of stuff coming up. Just today we had our executive ASB speeches, and elections are going on today through Friday. And then next week we'll begin campaigning for class offices, and the following week we'll do speeches and voting for ASB class offices. We also have an upcoming event. We're doing our final fundraiser of the year. We're hosting a barbecue in front of Dismore's next Friday, May 6th from 5 to 7. We're going to be selling hot dogs and hamburgers just to raise more money toward our fundraiser. We're hoping to reach our goal this year because we're thinking that would be pretty exciting. We could reach our $10,000 goal in 1 year. We're also...
Is Dismore's helping sponsor that?
Yes, so they're allowing us to be in front of them, and we'll also be purchasing the supplies from them, the food and stuff from them, so they often give us a small discount for the food that we buy. Yes.
Thanks to them. Thank you.
And finally, for our kind of last event of the year, we're going to be hosting a free movie night for all students with ASB cards. So we're not sure what movie we're going to be showing yet, but we're going to do it on May 20th at 7 in our new theater. And we're really excited for that, just to thank all of the students who have helped us in our fundraiser, and just to show our appreciation for their support of our fundraiser. So I think that's all.
That's good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lucy.
you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Okay, from there, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is board reports. So I'll start down here at my far left. Susan Weed, do you have a report for us this evening?
We do. Jefferson Elementary School is having open house 5 to 6 on Thursday, and their PTA art show is 5 to 7 on Thursday at Jefferson Elementary School, so that's pretty exciting. Also, Lincoln Middle School is running a fundraiser. I don't know if I'm stealing somebody else's thunder on it, but this is the No Nonsense fundraiser, so that you can donate, rather than buying magazines, which has traditionally been their fundraiser, and then most of the money going to the magazine companies, This one is just, for instance, for $15, you could mark off that you'd rather not buy magazines that will sit unread in our kitchen counter. For $25, you can support, I would have felt obligated to buy 2 subscriptions to avoid asking the neighbors, families, or friends. For $50, here is the money that I would have spent to purchase items to fill a basket for a silent auction. And $75, here's the money I would have spent to buy the basket so that I could return the items I donated. So it's kind of a no-nonsense fundraiser way for them to raise some money for their ASB and the student body, and supports their cross-country, girls tennis, boys basketball, wrestling, track, 6th grade intramurals, golf club, yearbook club, spirit club, art club, jazz band, all the other things that they do at Lincoln Middle School, and just really helps support. So April 30th is the last day. If you want to, you can mail a contribution to the LMS Booster Club at Lincoln Middle School. Make your payments to Pullman Education Foundation. Next thing I want to talk about is the FFA plant sale. It usually is in April or in May, but it's this Saturday, 8 to noon, and get there early because things fly out of there. But it is a great fundraiser for the FFA. That's here at the high school at the greenhouses around in the back. So there you go. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report, Susan. Dr. Everman, do you have a report for us?
I do. I attended the Franklin Elementary School spring concert by the 1st and 2nd graders, and the topic was camping. Let's go camping together, and it was really great. So the school is becoming small. I remember when we added 6 new classrooms. I mean, that place is just packed. I kind of wonder if we can build any more classrooms there, and we can't. So it's always good to attend these functions because you realize how many people are attending school. So it's just, and all the adults and families and stuff. So it's just, yeah, we're growing. But anyway, the concert was really delightful. That's all I had this evening.
Very good, thank you for that report. Dr. Johansson, do you have a
Well, I'll
report?
try and get this right. And I had a wonderful time yesterday sitting on the berm, watching 2 full squads. I think I counted right, and there were 20 suited up for the junior varsity and about 17 for the varsity, which is really healthy numbers. And as you probably read in the newspaper, they won in a shootout, the varsity did, but, and they won the league, and Godson finished out his senior year along with 7 other seniors, I believe, and in penalty kicks and the whole time that Matt's played, he's never missed one, and he was the free shooter yesterday. But the thing that I really wanted to report on in regards to soccer was, I think it's Jake Briggs, the JV coach. He's been coaching 6 years. They were 11-0, I believe, this year, and they outscored the other teams 49-1. So, and I think I watched the goal yesterday, and that must have been the only goal of the season on junior varsity. So, and the varsity, I think, if I've got it right, they're 10-2, and they still have to play Clarkston. And softball was playing. I haven't heard how they did today. They're doing fabulous. Baseball won the first one. I think I saw the score. And then track's doing really well. So, but it was fun to be out on a warm day where you could be in a t-shirt, and the kids weren't having to slosh around in the snow out there like it was at the beginning of the season. And it was just fun to be able to text Calvin about the success of soccer, because he still lives and breathes soccer and keeps track of it. I'm sure you already knew before I sent him some messages, but congratulations to all of our spring coaches. They've just been doing it, and the turnout is just huge. One other note, I don't know whether this young lady was one of them, but as soon as the JVs were over, there must have been 17 or so, 18 young ladies out practicing, and that's significant because we haven't had our own Pullman teams for a while on the girls' side. We've had the boys' side for club has stayed strong, but and maybe there's a comment here. Are you participating? Is it a club team?
Oh, Holly is actually going to the Moscow Parks and Recreation.
Oh, Moscow Parks and Rec.
So, yeah.
Well, I know, I was thinking the girls I saw that were playing were a little bit older, but,
Yeah, she's a small one.
okay. Thank you. That's my report.
Okay, thanks for that report. Dr. Munch-Rotolo, do you have a report?
No report.
I have none this evening either, so we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Sturm.
Thank you. As usual, we'll touch on the construction project. We have now 3 on our list that are going, and as you know, Pullman High School should be completed by the end of December this year, and the contractor, Garco, is making good progress and taking advantage of good weather and actually working on the last 2 wings. You can see the progress on the middle wing. The steel is, if it isn't all up, it's close to up, and they're framing it and putting in all the utilities, and that's really coming right along. And then they're putting concrete and footings in the most northern wing, getting ready to start putting underground electricity or electrical utilities in that probably this week or next. We heard on Tuesday at our meeting. So a lot of good progress. Like to thank Community Child Care Center. They have agreed to move to Franklin this summer for a couple of months so that the contractors can get in there unimpeded in front of all those sidewalks. The road has to be torn up, utilities, water lines have to be replaced, sidewalks put in that area. And so they will be moving to Franklin. There's some minor things we need to do to accommodate them at Franklin, but also thanks to Bill Holman and his staff. The special education program there are going to be a little bit displaced right after school's out and all summer, so they'll get to do some of their work remotely while we have some little toddlers in there for the summer. So thanks.
Still the director?
Yeah, thanks to it's Mary McDonald now, but thanks to Mary for her help and her staff cooperating and helping us out. It'll help them too, of course, because a lot of that work, it would be the end of October if we didn't all clear out of that space. And so it would be very disruptive in September and October. It'll probably still be a little disrupted at the beginning of the school year in early September, but there is a chance that by getting out of the way, it'll all be taken care of so that disruption will be fairly minor at that time. So
Kids will have bigger playground stacks.
yeah. So that's anything else on Pullman High School? All right. So moving on to Jefferson Elementary School, unless you walk up around the north side of Jefferson, you don't get to see much of what's going on, and I see the diesel smoke coming from the truck every morning, so I know they're starting about 6:30, 7 o'clock. So they were hauling dirt out of there this morning at about 7. So they're finishing they're working on the excavation on the west end. They have poured footings and foundations. I don't know if they've done the slab. I haven't looked. I don't think they've got the slab in yet, but there've been some issues at that end between weather and complications with moving a fire hydrant. There's been some delays on that end of the project, and then some issues with the ground. So getting out of the ground has been slow, but the contractor, at least last Thursday, was pretty confident that once they get out of the ground, they can make up time. So early, but it's hard, and we have a really short window to get that done by next fall. But so far, we're moving forward, and nothing, no big showstoppers so far. And then with the new elementary school, we are having interviews of architect candidates on the, is it the 5th?
Yes.
May 5th. We have 2 proposals, so we'll interview those 2 firms and get started on the design process. And we had a bond rating call with John Gores. Dan, you want to fill us in on that?
Monday, we had a bond rating call with a conference called John Gores in Seattle and Moody's in San Francisco. So all of us got together. Paul and Bob and Diane and I sat in my office, and really what you do is you explain just about everything you can think of with Pullman School District, from our financial situation to our fund balances, to demographics, to where we think we're going to be in the future, to what kind of projects do we have going, what's our ending fund balance board goal, and went through a lot of information about growth and where we're headed, and everything you can think of that promotes our great community that we live in, and then as well where we are financially and program-wise with Pullman School District. So they had a few questions that we went through and so forth, and the goal of it is to get a rating from them. Right now we're in an A1. I imagine that we'll stay A1. You can improve and you can go the other way based on different factors that they use in their analysis, but I believe, based on our conversation with them, that I sort of believe that we'll be exactly the same place. And that has minor implications on interest of potential investors and those sorts of things, but I think Pullman School District is really about as strong as any district that they're going to find out there today. So that went well. We're also in the process of getting ready to sell bonds in 1st of June there. We spent quite a bit of time on preliminary official statements. It's about 30 pages of all the information that you can think of that has to do with defeasances and possibilities and Pullman School District and finances and audits and all those things are combined into this report that is now just being completed and going out to then potential investors will read that official statement and make decisions based on that. So we're pretty busy putting together that information, but everything's going quite well.
Thanks, Dan.
Paul, is it possible to share the names of the 2? Is that confidential? Or?
No, it's we had 2 submittals, and it's ALSC and Design West Architects. ALSC is out of Spokane.
And we actually will be bringing that in a discussion item tonight as well, so we'll cover it briefly.
Preview.
Okay, and we had kindergarten roundup yesterday, and the numbers are looking very similar to where we were at this time last year. So having a little plateau for a year would be a good thing. So yeah, we had at the end of kindergarten roundup last year, we had 179, and as of the end yesterday, we had 176. So,
But
right.
that still means a larger cohort than we've had that would start through same.
Well, that's very similar to last year.
But
Yeah.
from the ones that are now 5th graders and 4th graders and so on.
Yeah.
Larger
We may,
cohort.
this will grow. I mean, that's not what the end number will be. We'll be somewhere around 200 or more by the time the school starts. But, so it'll be similar to, at least right now, if you were to extrapolate out, we'd be somewhere where our kindergarten classes started this year, which was just over, right around 200. Yeah, just slightly over.
203, I think.
So that's good news. A lot of interest in full-day kindergarten. so.
ton of interest in full day kindergarten.
All right, so, and then, Bob, you want to, we've had a couple of elementary school, or a couple of,
Yeah,
elementary schools have been recognized by the state, so Bob, you want to talk about that?
yeah, a lot of good news going on. So I'm trying to remember all the good news that's happening, but Jefferson Elementary and Franklin Elementary were both awarded High Progress Achievement Awards from the state of Washington. So more good news, and that's based on a 3-year trend. And so it's exciting. So they'll be receiving their banners and awards next month. And so it's great news. They're working very hard, and it shows. So we're really excited about that. Also, our 8th grade science team is off to nationals currently, and that's under the direction of Marla Haugen. And so it's great to have the 8th graders moving up. I know our high school team just didn't make it this year, but we have the 8th grade team, which will be our high school team next year. So we wish them all the luck. And also the Cyborgs robotics team, which we do have students from Pullman High School involved with, is also off to nationals once again. I think this is the 3rd year in a row that they're going to nationals as well. So a lot of good news and a lot of things that are happening. So along with our full day K, a lot of interest in that yesterday, and of course a lot of questions that come with that, and we'll be having our full day kindergarten parent information night here at Pullman High School on May 19th from 5:30 to 6:30. And so we'll be doing a little presentation. Tammy will be there representing transportation with maps and answering questions, and we'll have some of the kindergarten staff available, and should be a very good time. So a lot of high interest in full day right now. So also today was collaboration. It was our last collaboration for the year, and it's a district-wide collaboration. So if you were not able to get a parking spot at Lincoln Middle School, like I was unable to get, so I should have walked from the district office, it would have probably been shorter. Very productive day. Staff were engaged, working hard. Many of the teams had to be reminded that we were closing the building. So at the end of the day, they just kept going. We had Tammy Schrader from ESD 101, a science leader in our region, come down and work with our kindergarten through 6th grade teachers on next generation science standards and using our kits that we currently own. And now they're not quite in alignment, but how can we make those aligned for the coming year in order to be prepared for the next gen science standards? So she spent probably the first hour doing an activity with the staff, going over some standards. Then they broke into grade level teams with their kits and went through what do we need to adjust those kits to match the standards, and worked on lessons for next year. And so very productive, well received. We also spent a lot of time working with, collaborating with paras on the Law Kids slow start for full day K. And so that was very productive, and we were able to get a lot of good collaboration time in, and teams were really working hard, and it was a great day and a very productive day. So
I have one thing to add about robotics. I was just back 2 weekends ago from the IAC meeting, which is the Interscholastic Activities Committee, which is part of Wadstar State Association, and it advises the WIA. And so we took a vote as our part of all the amendments that are being proposed. We voted unanimously among our group to endorse going forward with sponsoring a multiple of disciplines in robotics rather than it being an endorsement of one of the 3 firms, which is, I think, FIRST is one of the primary ones. I'm not sure even what our combined team is, whether they're involved with FIRST. I believe they are. But all 3 major firms went together and had the process, the proposal to the WIA, sponsored by a number of school districts, as is the process, to get an amendment. I had an opportunity directly in several conversations with Mr. Colbreeze, the WIA director, and with Alan Burke, the outgoing executive director of WASDA, to talk at length about the necessity for the possibility of multiple schools going together to sponsor teams, and how that would work with the Scholastic Cup and points and so on. I didn't think was as important as continuing efforts like the one that's been going on here now. And Palouse Garfield used to be part of that, and now they have a team of their own. So it looks like there'll be a possibility for that as we ease into it, and just that it would have the if the amendment passes, it would have the endorsement of all of the various stakeholders that participate in that WIA amendment process, and we would have possibility of robotics being endorsed and supported and so on by the WIA, and how competitions would work, and whether we just endorse the various models and celebrate that process. I don't know, but I think it's going to go at least for a couple of years as a pilot, as a non-designated one kind of robotics being sponsored by the WIA. I'd be surprised if the amendment doesn't pass. So that's good news to expand the scope, and it would be within fine arts realm that WIA sponsors, even though it's considered to be CTE and so on, but speech and so on, it doesn't really fit within the athletics division, so it would be the other side of the WIA. I was excited to hear about the possibility.
Thank you, Carl. Anything else, Paul?
No, we're good.
Okay. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. To expedite business at our board meetings, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by any single member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. So does any member of the board have anything on the consent agenda they'd like to pull off and vote on separately?
I will move that we approve the consent agenda as presented this evening.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. I'll quickly mention what's on the consent agenda tonight. It's the minutes from our last special meeting and our last board meeting. Budget and status report, expense warrants, personnel and professional service reports, personnel reports, new LMS club, and record destruction and transfer requests. So we'll proceed to vote on that. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So from there, we go to the next item on the agenda, which is the action items. And the first action item this evening is the Sunnyside Roof Project, and to present that is our Executive Director of Support Services, Dan Hornfeld.
Thank you very much. Let's see, on April 9th and 16th, we put notification in the newspaper about Sunnyside Roof Project and asked contractors to come forward. We went through that process. They hiked around the top of the roof for an afternoon. And on April 21st, then we opened bids. And we did receive bid tabulation of 4 contractors that were interested in the project. We opened bids at Design West that day, and Cobra Building, Missoula Sheet Metal, Spokane Roofing, actually 5, Kruger Sheet Metal, and Icon Corporation bid the project. We had bids that ranged from $134,500 to $224,529. There's a 3-day rescission period, so you go with the lowest bidder, you give them 3 days, you contact them, you say, I know that you were the low bidder, these were the bids that were out there, do you still feel confident in the bid that you made for Pullman School District to do the job that needs to be done and the expectation? We got through the 3 days, they said they were very confident with their bid. Design West has worked with Icon Corporation before, and they're a reputable, good company to work with. So tonight we come before the board and ask for the board to approve Icon Corporation from Green Acres, Washington, to re-roof the flat part of Sunnyside Elementary at the cost of $134,500.
What causes such a disparity in the bids?
Well, the market, probably the job market, and how busy and where they're coming from and that sort of thing. Some may have a full plate, some may not. And so you see some of that in bidding, that they would come, the high bidder would come down and do our roof for that amount of money and probably hire additional staff and those sorts of things. So there's a combination of variables that are involved in that. But it's a great process to have a formal bid like that take place, and so we're able to take advantage of contractors that would like to come down and do the project and commit to it. So,
Thank you.
yes, Jim.
Does the school district set a warranty, and does the contractor meet that warranty? In terms of the work done, is there a warranty
Oh,
on that?
absolutely.
Okay.
There'll be probably a 20-year warranty on this roof.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So is that something we set, or is that something,
It's set by the materials provider, and it's set by the contractor. So
Okay.
not only does the contractor warranty their work, but the materials that they use as well are warranted.
okay.
And so sometimes you have a material problem, and you go
So
back to the
I guess
manufacturer.
my question is that taken into consideration when looking at the cost of the bid?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, it is.
All right.
Yeah, good questions.
I
Any
move
other-
approval of the Icon Corporation bid of $134,500.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. The board approved the Icon Corporation for the flat roof construction project on Sunnyside Elementary School in the amount of $134,500. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. That brings us to item B under action items, and that is the 2016-17 PHS course offerings. To present that is our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. Again, this is something that we do annually. We bring the course offerings before you to discuss, and then, of course, recommend that, recommendations of any changes or continuation of the courses. And so the annual process will have Pullman High School first, and with that, to make it easier to read, Joe has listed out the courses that are not offered and the courses that are new for the 16-17 year. You can see some of those switch depending on the year. And textiles, for instance, is offered every other year. And then leadership is the proposed course, and we'll be talking about that later on in the agenda today.
All right, you've all had the opportunity to review those course offerings for the next year. What would be the pleasure of the board concerning those?
I will move that we approve the list of Pullman High School courses offered for the 2016-2017 school year.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the list of Pullman High School course offerings for the 16-17 school year. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
I believe that, well, it says on here that language will not be offered next year and literature will be. But this year we have literature and usually I thought they alternated.
Does anyone have a clarification on that?
Mr. Thornton?
That is correct.
Okay. So we'll have to note that change.
Okay, so if there's no objections, we'll just add that correction to the paperwork.
Yep.
If there's no objections, okay, we'll do that then. All right, any further comments, questions, or discussion? By the way, good catch, Lucy, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you very much. That brings us to item C under action items, which is the 2016-17 Lincoln Middle School course offerings. Dr. Maxwell's on deck again.
Yes, thank you very much. So again, same process with Lincoln Middle School. We have the course offerings broken out this year a little bit differently. So it shows 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. There are actually no changes this coming school year from the courses that were offered this year.
If there are no changes, I will move that we approve the list of Lincoln Middle School courses offered for the 2016-17 school year.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the list of Lincoln Middle School course offered for the 2016-17 school year. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
High school.
That brings us to item D, which is the high school graduation requirements, and present this, Dr. Maxwell.
Oh, as soon as we get the right one up there, we need the one right before that. So this will be for 2410 high school graduation requirements. There we are. That's the right one. Thank you. So again, suggestions from WASDA and also clarify credits from other programs and off-campus learning. We propose the following changes to 2410, which is the high school graduation requirements. And really the majority of these changes are clarifications to help us go through and decide how to handle off-campus learning credits and whether really someone is accessing credits at the high school as an ancillary service, or are they working towards a Pullman High School diploma. And so we've tried to make some suggestions and changes to clarify that process, and at the same time also update it with WASDA's language and also their structure, where they've broken it out by class of 2018, for example, or class of 2019. Seem to read a little bit more fluidly for the reader than the last time we worked on this policy, which we'll probably be seeing again and again in the future because it continually changes. I think every year I've been here, we've actually brought this same policy and procedures for you, so to consider. But again, those are the main changes that we've made to the policy and procedures for 2410. And I know it will probably change again because we will have some legislative changes over the summer, and so I'll be bringing this back again in the future. So,
Well, I will start for now and move that we approve policy 2410 high school graduation requirements.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve 2410 high school graduation requirements, policy 2410, excuse me. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving policy 2410 high school graduation requirements, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to item E under action items, which is policy 6970, naming of school facilities. Dr. Maxwell.
again, so we're bringing to you some possible different motions to look at the policy 6970, which again deals with the naming of facilities or schools, which will be coming up soon and is one of the probably the number one question that's always asked about the elementary is, what is it going to be called? And of course, we haven't even started the design yet. But it was a good chance for us to go back and kind of look at our existing policy, and which was a little bit dated, and taking a look at what the Washington School Directors Association recommends. So we have 3 different motions there to for you to consider regarding changes to that policy to help clarify the process and help in your decision making.
And I think I presented this at the last
You
board
did.
meeting, so just
So
to
if you want to
remind-
add to that,
Just to
Dr. Stern.
remind you that the 2970 policy is being revised. We're asking the board to accept the procedures 6970. You don't typically approve those, but because it culminates in a board action, we wanted you to at least accept the procedures. And then we've combined, there was a policy 6970.1 that we've incorporated into 6970.
All right. Are there any comments or questions on how we're going to proceed with this? Look at each item individually. And what's the pleasure of the board?
Is it possible for us to just move on all 3 motions?
I would accept that motion.
I move approval of the 3 motions to be combined into one motion and to be approved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to combine all 3 motions into one motion to be approved. That's to approve policy 6970 and the procedures for it, and to delete 6970.1 because it's been incorporated into policy 6970. Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
I would just comment that I thought we had discussed removing the sentence about the name of the high school in 6970.
We did.
We did.
Okay.
Yep, you're
Did that
absolutely
not
right.
get-
It's still in there.
Okay.
And it's not a deal breaker, I don't care, but it's just.
Well, no, let's,
No,
if we
Doesn't
can
make a
friendly
lot of
amend it
sense.
to
Yeah.
include that.
Okay.
Edit.
I'm just going to say if there's no
As it
objections,
is.
that will be corrected.
Okay.
Okay. And there are no objections.
Last meeting, so.
I think that we, Shannon wasn't at our last meeting, so it
Yeah.
didn't get communicated.
Okay,
Yep.
That's fine.
That's my fault.
I'll accept that friendly amendment.
Okay.
thank you.
Any further comments, questions, or discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving policy 6970 as received and accepting the procedures for 6970 and removal of 6970.1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our action items and the start of the discussion items, which means we're back on the item A of discussion items, which is the PHS leadership class. I believe we've visited on that before. Dr. Maxwell.
Once or twice.
Just a couple times. So thank you very much. This has been a very popular topic, so I'm glad to bring it back once again with, again, another revision for your consideration. So based on the very productive and lively talks and passionate talks we've had about the leadership class, I'm suggesting some revised language. And so it would change that all ASB executive officers are strongly encouraged to enroll in the class. It's not a requirement, but they're encouraged to enroll in that class. I also put in that at the end of the 2016-17 school year, that the leadership class and ASB activities will be reviewed, summarized, and presented to the school board to give us an idea of how that progressed throughout the year, so we can reflect on that class and the activities and what were the results. And so to give us a little more information on our new course, as well as how that course may have impacted the activities throughout the year. So to bring that back to you is kind of a summary to say, here's what happened during the year. And that would give us some more information that if we needed to make any changes, we'd have that information, so. I'll present that for your consideration.
I like the change. So it allows us a year to evaluate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So-
we're just encouraging.
We're just encouraging,
participation.
yeah.
That's, so,
ASB is in favor of the change as well.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
No, I
Is
will
this-
say that I didn't realize that it was the board that would be the one that established whether or not it was a requirement. I was very confused on that. I thought that would be the high school that would make it, that it would, the class would have to be a requirement for the ASB officers. So that was my concern, and now that I know the board has to approve it, I like this. This version is perfect, and we can review it and then
Yeah.
see where we go,
is this time sensitive?
probably.
Since we passed the
I
previous.
normally wouldn't ask you to, but I know Joe's really busy with trying to get his course catalog out, and so if you could consider moving it, I wouldn't be opposed to an action item, so.
Well, I will move that we move the leadership class approval to a action item this evening.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move the PHS leadership class to an action item this evening. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of moving it to an action item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously, so we will.
And then I will move that we approve the leadership class for 2016-17 school year.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the leadership class for the 2016-17 school year. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much. That's off our agenda now. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
That brings us to the next discussion item, which is policy 3114, home base and off-campus student enrollment in district programs for ancillary services. To present that is our superintendent, Dr. Paul Sturm.
Thank you. This is actually related to the graduation requirement policy and procedures, and we had this, thought we had this ready for you a couple meetings ago, and had entered the wrong version in the board packet, so we discovered that at the end and pulled it out. So we're back with that, and basically these revisions are similar to what was done to the previous policy. It is to an attempt, at least, to clarify home-based and what we sometimes call part-time enrollment at the school. The confusion seems to emerge every 2 or 3 years. Home-based instruction and enrollment at the school are two separate things, and by law, you can't do both at the same time. So if you're a home-based instructed student, you can access courses at the high school, but you're not, at that point, you're not a student pursuing a diploma because you're a homeschool student. Now, at some point, if you decide you want a diploma, then there are ways to re-emerge re-enroll into the high school. Thank you.
Sorry.
And so this is an attempt to clarify how that works. We've had conversations with our attorneys. We've looked at a number of different policies, and there are many of them that are as confusing as ours was. So bottom line is, this tries to lay out that if you are in a private school and you're a resident in our school district, you can access public school for ancillary services. And there are some conditions in law and in policy based, that limit that. But essentially, if the private school that you're attending doesn't offer a course and you want to take it from a public school, you can. Home-based instruction, basically, if you're a homeschool student, you can access pretty much any course that you'd like to at Pullman High School, if you're a resident in our attendance area. You just can't be both a Pullman High School diploma-seeking student and opt out for homeschool for this class or that class. You have to be one or the other. You have to choose. And anybody that chooses homeschool, there's a way clear up to their senior year to re-enroll as a Pullman High School student.
So this is different, say, from a student that is taking, a math or science class online that's enrolled?
That would have to be approved by the principal if they're a
So-
student at high school.
Okay, but they're enrolled students, but, enrolled Pullman High School students, correct? And then,
That has to be approved by the principal,
Okay.
yes. They can't just go out
and do it?
and do it. There are students that prearrange that with the principal, and depending on the course
Okay,
and the counselor and the principal and the parent getting together,
right.
that can be a possibility, yes.
So that is different from this, then, right.
Yeah, basically what we're looking at is when they're trying to access, they'd have to declare, yes, I am
One or
seeking
the
a
other,
diploma,
okay.
or no, I'm not seeking a diploma. And so we have two forms, I believe they're in this
Sure.
package, that
Okay,
help delineate that, because our form right now is pretty confusing. And so what we want to have is, parents and students declare right up front, are you seeking ancillary services or are you seeking a diploma? Because then that will define the pathway and credits
Sure.
and how many credits would count and what credits. Or if you're a private school student seeking the access, then, it would be based on what courses are not offered in a private school. So it helps clarify right from the beginning. We're asking people to declare. And then they always have the option to re-enroll in high school if they change their mind and want to seek a diploma. There's a pathway to do that.
how does the graduation requirements factor into it? Do they have to have taken all the graduation requirements that are required?
Yep.
They either have to take all of the graduation requirements or the principal can waive them.
Waive some, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question about the money. When students are, for instance, homeschooled or in a private school and access us for, say, 2 periods a day, does the basic school support come for those, for that portion of FTE?
Correct.
Yeah.
They're fully funded.
But nothing for the extra work if they declare that they want to be and graduate and do it all in their senior year, and our staff have to work with them in order to do that. It's just a basic FTE.
They'd have to
They
enroll.
become a transfer student just like somebody moving here from Kentucky.
Yeah.
But maybe the
Or
person from Kentucky would have.
Oklahoma, or
Maybe
Idaho.
those students from Kentucky or Oklahoma would have some registered credits to transfer and so on, rather than evaluating what they've done as a homeschool student. Okay.
Any further comments, questions, or discussion? If not, that will come back to us at our next meeting.
I have one other
Sure.
question that's ancillary to it, but that they don't have to be enrolled at all. They can be homeschooled or a private school student and participate in their school of origin, which is like Pullman High School, in athletics and other activities that are school sponsored,
correct.
Correct, yes.
since there's no FTE that flows with them anyways.
I would just add that the form to which you were referring is in the very back of the packet. So
Oh,
you can
thanks.
see how it's to,
Yeah.
you pick. So you're defining yourself, whether you're on track to get a diploma
And that helps us to
Yeah.
then determine what the pathway is gonna
Yeah.
be, because right now it's very,
I think this is a
very
great step
confusing.
forward.
The problem with the way it was presented in the forums in the past is it gave the impression that you could be a Pullman High School diploma-seeking student and take only part of the courses and take the rest of them somewhere else, and that's not how it works.
I just thought of something. How does the students that are in private schools in Pullman work into this situation? Are they considered like a home-based learner too, or?
they would be, there's a section where they would be a private school student. Private school students can access high school courses if the course is not offered at their private school.
Okay,
So, for example, is if they don't offer calculus, they can access calculus here at the high school. So they could take a calculus course, but still, that would apply towards their private school diploma.
okay.
And we're funded by the state for it.
So if they
For
came
that.
for that class, we would get funding for that class, for that student.
Right.
It doesn't happen
Point
often,
two.
but it can happen. It's not just a high school question, but I can't remember of a situation where it happens. Maybe for a class like music
Yeah,
Music
orchestra is
at the middle school.
fairly common in middle
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Okay,
Typically, homeschool students will take PE or music are the most
Yeah.
popular courses, other than outside of high school, like middle school or elementary.
okay, great. Any-
Could a private school student come and want to, or homeschool student, come and register and then take with approval an online course, just as if they were a Pullman High School student with approval to take and have that funded as CTE or approved for funding by the state?
It's my understanding it could only do that if the online course was not offered at their private school
They're not,
or available at their school, private school.
And I'd have to go back and look. There was one policy that, and I think we patterned it after that policy, that if there's a fee for that course, because some of our courses,
They would have to pay.
we get the funding for the student, but there's a fee also in addition for the course, and they'd have to pay that fee.
because I remember in my time on the board, we had students actually enroll in Pullman High School and take an entire online Running Start course because their school did not offer Running Start. So they took the course online, courses online. There were, maybe this has been superseded by the advent of all the academies and the online academies so that people could enroll directly, but they took college courses online from either, it must have been through WSU, because we had an agreement with only Walla Walla Community College and WSU for Running Start. Community College is Spokane also. And they took all of their courses online. The young lady I'm remembering was from a rural area outside of Bellingham, was a Pullman, probably within your time, Joe. It was, we had a non-resident Pullman High School student that took all their courses Running Start through Pullman High School. And we received the funding for it.
I think Joe has some clarifications about that. I'm not familiar with that.
Carl, I wish I could tell you I remember that student, but I don't.
Maybe it was a bad dream for you, I mean,
yeah.
for me, on your behalf.
Currently, and WSU had quite a battle over this, currently WSU does not allow access to online courses through Running Start.
Okay.
And that was a big battle that they had to wage, and most of that came from the west side. Students wanted to choice into Pullman High School, stay in Tacoma, choice into Pullman High School, stay where they live, and then access
Running Start WSU online courses, and WSU was successfully able to say no. And a big piece of that is most of those online courses they offer are upper level courses anyway to begin with. So that's not an issue, is students accessing online. Now, it could also be possible that they could come to us and take some of our online offerings that we offered through our Flex Ed program. However, we have a procedure in place that requires a committee to approve that, and we look at 5 different parameters as to whether or not a student would be approved to take that online course. Because our first choice is always in the classroom with an instructor. And the parameters are things like conflict in schedule, credit recovery, a health issue that might prevent the student from coming to school, those different things. It's going to be quite atypical that a homeschool or private school student would come and access one of those courses.
I realize you haven't been on Virtual forever, so this case may have in fact precipitated some of that discussion at WSU.
Yeah.
But
And
I
it-
remember distinctly the parameters.
Yeah, and it was quite a battle WSU had to wage, because if they had opened up that floodgate to allow students to access online courses via Running Start, I mean, our enrollment probably would have gone to 30,000. And we would have had none of them on campus. So,
Like Northport or whatever
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
that has all those students online enrolled there. But this was Running Start, and in fact, that was the situation. Her home high school, of course, didn't have a relationship for Running Start with WSU or any other school.
well, obviously, to access Running Start at WSU, you need to be close enough to WSU to get to class.
Yep.
You know, we have obviously a lot of kids, subset of kids in Pullman do that, some kids at Colton, some kids in Colfax, a few kids in Garfield Palouse. I think there's an occasional Clarkston student who drives up the hill every day for that. And most of the Running Start access in the state is at community colleges. In fact, WSU is the only, well, I take that back. Eastern does a program as well. And I think you're right. There was that student who started opening that door of accessing online courses through Running Start, and WSU quickly realized this is a floodgate. If we don't close this door now, it's going to be a floodgate. And I'm glad they did, because I don't think it would serve students very well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for the
Joe.
information.
Any further comments or questions concerning policy 3114?
Well, it's a complex issue, and thanks for the discussion and diligence on working through all the policies presented to it.
Okay, any further comments or questions? We'll move on. That'll come back to us at our next meeting. Next item under discussion items is item C, which is architect statement of qualifications. To present that is our Executive Director of Support Services, Dan Hornfeld.
Thank you. We briefly discussed this tonight a little bit, our architect selection process for our new elementary school. We did have a request go out for a statement of qualifications for architectural services, and it was advertised locally and in the Daily Journal of Commerce, where all contractors go and seek this sort of information. We received 2 statements of qualifications that we already spoke about, ALSC and Design West. Both architectural firms have done work for Pullman School District previously. And so we've formed a committee to observe the 2 presentations on May 5th here in this room, one at 11, the other one at 1. We have a committee that's together now. We initially put Board President Kinzer on that committee, and he wanted me to remind you of that tonight, and so I am doing that as
Okay.
well. So
Excellent.
what we'll do is we will have this presentation take place on May 5th. The collective input from the group will form a recommendation that will come back to the board on May 11th for approval, hopefully approval on that, so we can start that process of design with an architectural firm.
Is
So
ALSC NAC by another name, or is it a separate design?
Different firm, out of Spokane.
Wow.
They did our elementary schools. Dave Hootery, Gary Dinwiddie were representatives of that firm. Dave Hootery is still there. And so they're excited to be able to come down and make a presentation, as well as Ned Warnick and Sam Gregg from Design West. So we look forward to that.
Hopefully, we would still retain our same project supervision process that we've used, because the design of those two schools was excellent. However, the project supervision and contractor was wanting.
It's our intention to continue with CSG as project manager.
We just have a great working relationship, and they're very good at what they do. And so it's a good thing for that project. So any other questions on upcoming architect selection? Okay.
Comments or questions? I was wondering if we wanted to, or if it would be appropriate if we wanted to have two board members on that selection committee to look at it. Would that be appropriate?
Yes, that's either the pleasure of the board, or actually you could just appoint people,
Is that something?
assuming you could find somebody willing.
Allison, is that something
There's
you
always
want to
that.
be in on?
I was thinking Susan would be a good choice because she's in the construction.
I can do it if you'd like. I mean, I'm available that day, but if you'd like, prefer Allison, I have no problem.
Well, I was just giving our vice president the option, so.
Yeah. No problem with,
On May 5th, I actually can't,
Okay,
so.
all right. Somebody else really interested in it, or is that?
But if Susan's gonna do it, that's fine, I'd be willing to do it, and I'm available then.
Okay. Would you like to do that, Susan, then?
I would love to.
Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Let's do that then. Do you have a time of day on that?
I do. Actually, I think we're talking about quarter 11, 10:30
10:30.
through 3.
Okay.
The actual presentation will start at 11, but we were going to get the committee together at 10:30.
Your office?
I believe
Here.
we're doing it
Here.
right here in this
Oh,
room.
okay. Well, I might be able to find my way.
And we'll have some lunch and such in between. So we've
Thank
got a
you.
presentation 11 and one at 1. Okay.
Very good, yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll get that information out to both of you so that you'll have that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, appreciate that. I believe I've already got it on the calendar, I'll double check that, though. Any further comments or questions concerning that? Otherwise, we will move on to item D under discussion items, which is the resolution 15-1610 surplus inventory sale. Dan, you're on deck again.
Thank you. A process we go through for declaring property surplus, notifications in the newspaper twice locally, opening for sale to private and public schools on one particular occasion, and then 30 days later, by state law, we have to wait to then open up to the public. So we'll have one designated date on, I don't know if I have the date here. I know the second one's July 8th, so if you back up 30 days, would be the date for the public and private schools, and that's in the newspaper and notifications. And so what we've done is we've accumulated some goods and materials and so forth in the district over at the maintenance shop. And we've got desks, chairs, work tables, printers, cabinets, 2 lathes out of the high school, computer equipment, 2 table saws, a router, pump parts, and boiler parts. And so those are available for surplus. We come back at the next board meeting and ask the board to approve the surplus sale by resolution 15-1610, and then we'd begin that countdown to the private and public sales. in the maintenance shop. So any questions on the surplus sale at all? That'll be coming back at the next meeting for recommendation for approval.
Dan, does the resolution need to have the date?
The what?
Does the resolution need to have the date for the,
It does. Down at the bottom it says signed this 11th.
no, I mean the
day.
date for when the
Sale
sale
occurs.
will occur.
No, that's in the notifications in the newspaper and so forth, so, no,
Okay.
should be good to go.
Okay, any other comments or questions concerning the surplus inventory sale? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is Resolution 151611, Project Assurances. You're on deck again, Dan.
Thank you. Well, I think as the board knows, we've received preliminary approval for a grant for $7.4 million for to add to the construction process at the new elementary school. And there are several things that we need to go through to make sure that we meet the requirements of that grant. And two of them are before us tonight. The first one is resolution of project assurances. Basically what the board's saying in this resolution is that you will place local money first, or money that's approved by voters of our district, to front the project with our local money, and after the local money is expended at the level necessary, then the $7.4 million will begin to apply to the project. So that's one of the assurances that you're making. The other ones you can see 1 through 12, and number 1 is the name of the facility, so we're working on that already tonight. Number of classrooms, gross square footage, total project budget amount, final construction amount, site plan, floor plans, area analysis, and then some, the rest of them apply to modernizations. And so OSPI Facilities has written back and said that they think they may take those out because we're not just talking about modernizations across the state. Some of us are building new schools. And so they may remove that and apply it to those districts that are modernizing their facilities rather than new elementaries. So that's Resolution 151611 that we need to send to facilities at OSPI to meet requirements as we move through this process. Carl.
First question, the fronting money, and our plans through the resolution we passed to use some of the money that was approved in the bond issue. So the way it would work would be, let's say that the school, as we currently think of it, would cost $23 million, whatever, $23,500,000. So we would build up until, and we would be billing our own money from the bond issue up until about $15 million, and then the state grant would kick in, and then the remaining 7.2 or whatever could be used for other projects, which could start and be ongoing at the same time.
That's exactly the way I see it taking place. We still have, we've spent quite a bit of time with OSPI Facilities. They've been really good to work with us over there. So that's really the last question that I have for them, is how that process is going to work. But really what it comes down to is when we receive the bids, when we get the bid from the contractor and the soft costs, and put those together and identify the true cost of that project, then my understanding is then we do exactly what you're suggesting, that we back off to 7.4 million less and front up to that amount, and then begin receiving grant money to finish the project. Then the residual dollars that are left over, the resolution was written that the board has the opportunity to identify other facility needs within the school district, defease bonds, and those are choices that will be presented to you, and you can make those decisions when we get to that point. Yeah.
Because
one,
otherwise we could front until it was done.
yeah. The caveat, the thing that we'll have to work toward and be aware of and understand is that there are IRS implications on those dollars, and we have to spend them within 3 years of sale of bonds. So when it all comes together, then we may have some simultaneous activity going on as well to make sure that they go together and we finish the projects as needed, or defease, or whatever the action is.
Incidentally, the original state Supreme Court decision that affected that was a delay in the building of Walla High School a number of years ago when my dad was chairman of the board. Because of the delays, there were interests that were earned, and those it was determined that the interest, the IRS had a say-so in the interest that the district was earning, so that other districts didn't deliberately delay projects, starting them and collect the money from. So I believe it has to be covered within a certain time frame now. Those rules didn't exist at the time.
That's right. Even during a project, like right now, we're just completing arbitrage rebate calculations to assure that we haven't collected more interest on the dollars that we're investing while we're building the high school, that we haven't exceeded what the coupon rate is that we pay on the bonds. So all that is ongoing as we go through the projects.
One of the things I think that if anticipating those residual dollars, some thought needs to begin now into what residual dollars might be used for, because planning for other projects, if you wait until the end of the project to plan them, it'll be too late to spend the money on them.
Right.
So you'd have to defease the
Defease.
bonds and then go out to the voters again. So,
We need
you
to
know.
be going now.
So our date is May 30th. We go through all this activity and we make sure that we provide all the information to OSPI to meet the requirements of the grant. And then the final grant award is May 30th. So once we know that on May 30th, we can really then concentrate on moving forward and knowing that those dollars are absolutely committed to our efforts. So that's a great date for us.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good one.
So that's the resolution of project assurances. Any other questions on that?
Okay, thank you, Dan, appreciate that. That brings us to item F, under discussion items, which is the resolution 15-16-12, certifying the 5-year continued use and 30-year extension of the life of the building. To present that's Dan again.
Thank you. That's exactly what this is. The grant wants to be assured, the grant givers want to make sure that the board will commit to this elementary being used for the purpose that we say it is, which is K-3 class size reduction for at least 5 years, and that you're also certifying that you commit to the life of the building of 30 years. Okay, and that always bothered me a little bit, because I want to think 50 years, but really what they do, the way their asset preservation programs are set up and so forth, they want to see districts maintain at least 30 years of facilities before you can start thinking about applying for new grant funds and such for your school district, for your building. And so it's just their ceiling and requirement for building life. But we really expect that our buildings will last longer than 30 years. The high school is an example of that. And so in this resolution, which is Resolution 15-16-12, the school board would certify 5-year continued use and 30-year extension of the life of the building. Okay. So those two resolutions we'll bring back at the next board meeting when you sign them.
Couple questions on that one. How, since it'll be used for K-3 class size reduction, but our plan is to have more grades than K-3 there. Does that figure in any way to the financing?
It's a great question because that's bothered me for, I don't know, 6 months. And I keep going to Paul and I go, not doggone it, Paul, listen to me. But why don't you explain that, Paul? Because what they're saying is that we need 18 classrooms in our district. Okay, and so you can take that and tell them what you tell me.
Well, what the state has done through a third party is identified that we have a need for 18 classrooms in order to accomplish K-3 class size reduction. They don't care what kids go into what classrooms. They just have certified that we need to expand our capacity by 18 classrooms somewhere, somehow, in order to accomplish K-3 class size reduction. Yeah, we don't have to put K-3 students only in those classrooms. We have to build those classrooms for the purpose of reducing class size in grades K-3.
In 18 classrooms, because we need 18.
Right.
So
they look at your total inventory of classrooms and how many more do you need in order to do what we're being asked to do.
Okay. The follow-up question is, and maybe it's equally ridiculous, but we've had some preliminary conversations about possibility of reconfiguring and due to pressure on LMS and so on. And certainly we would want to take the grant and the money, but would it figure in any way that if we definitely would be able to reconfigure to all fifth graders would go to the new school or something like that, because it has to be used. Is it for the purposes of class size reduction, or is it for the purposes of, you've already answered, it's not for K-3 students exclusively, but it would be still used within the district for class size reduction, and would the 5-year limit in any way hamper us in planning for use of facility?
It could, depending on what that reconfiguration looks like. If you forego the class size reduction and use it for reconfiguration so that you don't have to expand Lincoln Middle School, if that's the purpose you do it for, I think you'd be violating.
It might be forfeited.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
It would.
The purpose of the grant is for K-3 class size reductions.
I was finally able to rest my head in bed when I put it together in my mind that they identified 18 classrooms need to be added to Pullman School District to achieve a 17-to-1 ratio in K-3. And that's really the way it breaks down. And so that's what our obligation is to that grant. And we have to make sure that it's expended for that purpose. So by driving 7.4 million into the new elementary school, there'll be no question about the fact that we've met that requirement. So, yeah.
Thank you.
The 18 classroom size, that's a minimum, so the elementary school could be larger than 18. Okay.
Yes.
And I think we could actually show that we built 4 classrooms on the Jefferson too for additional purpose. So when they looked at, we spent quite a bit of time inputting all the information about every teaching room that we had in our elementary schools. And then WSU came through and did the analysis to see if that was correct. And I think we were at 16 classrooms, and they came through and after their calculations said, no, you're actually at 18. So we went back in and changed that in the grant. And so that's been identified, and that's our goal, to be able to achieve that 18 classrooms to receive that grant money. And it was amazing to me as I looked through all the schools, and there was 92 schools that applied, and there were 20 that received dollars. and we were number 3 in scoring. But it was amazing to see, that there are districts out there that had, we qualified for 18, there was 89, 88, 75 classrooms that they needed to meet those requirements. And so this is a pilot, and we knew at the beginning that this is our best chance at that pilot, because the next time it comes out, you look at all those school districts that need all those classrooms, there's going to be a lot of money that needs to be spent to achieve that. So I believe timing is everything, and we just happened to hit it right and had good timing here, and it's going to work out for our community and our students. So,
Thank you, Dan.
You mentioned Jefferson and the 4 classrooms.
I did.
Is it a possibility that $1.5 million or whatever it is the first of the front loading?
And we spent a bit of time talking about that, and we figured our definition of that was that we've already got funding for that, and so to not convolute it or confuse it, that we've already got that covered in funding. Now, that's one of the options the board may have down the road is, do you want to pay that loan back? Do you want to put more classrooms on the school? Do you want to add a couple of classes at Lincoln? There are several things and options that will be formulated, and as Dr. Sturm's saying, we need to start thinking about this now so we can start coming up with a plan of what to do with that money. But that's a possibility that we continue to service that 1.4 million. Part of it's paid off, all of it's paid off. It'll be a decision that the board will make based on need and the best bang for the dollar.
Thank you.
Good questions, good discussion, and clarification is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the last item under discussion items. That is the Resolution 161702 WIAA membership by Dr. Sturm.
This is one that comes at you every year for you to annually decide whether we're going to participate in the WIAA. And, I feel like it ought to go in the consent agenda, but it's a resolution, so you have to vote on it. Good.
All right, any comments or questions concerning?
Sports lingo? No.
Yeah.
I won't say it.
I'm just going to say the process is as it is for this year, and there may in fact be some language in the resolution next year in the paperwork that we actually sign.
Okay. Very good. If there's no further comments or questions, that completes our discussion item list. That'll come back at our next meeting. Double check here, were we going to have need a closed session or an executive meeting?
Executive session and a closed session, and this is an earlier version apparently. I think your copy has
Okay.
the closed session
Okay,
as well.
yeah, it does,
Following the executive session. I don't believe the closed session needs to be protracted, but it's just some updates and a couple of questions for the board regarding collective bargaining.
Okay, yeah, I think it'll last a half hour.
Executive session will I'm thinking the executive session is your discussion around dedicated teacher award. The closed session, so that'll probably take, I don't know, you decide, 15 minutes, is that enough?
15.
Yeah, so 30 minutes per total for the two, I would say.
Okay, very good. Just to backtrack just a little bit, there's informational items in the packet too for everyone to peruse through. We will need about 30 minutes for executive session and closed session concerning dedicated teacher award on the evaluation of personnel and closed session for collective bargaining information. no decisions will be made, so we will, if there's no objections, we will recess our regular meeting until the room is cleared and we can enter into our executive and closed sessions. Okay, this meeting.